Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today I would like to have a discussion on this subject regarding a big Nintendo Switch 2 leak that happened just a few days ago, and how some of us, some fans of Nintendo, are actually kinda mad about this Switch 2 leak. What leak am I talking about? Why are people mad? Well, that's what we're getting into today. But before going forward, let me ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell. And now here is a brief message about today's sponsor. Snaxy is the ultimate Android gaming mobile app where you can earn incredible rewards from over 100,000 options while playing your favorite mobile games. And it also helps publishers acquire new users. Every gaming session with Snaxy is rewarding, with over 100,000 items like gift cards, game skins, and in-game coins. Integrate Snaxy into your routine for non-stop gaming, personalized recommendations, generous rewards, and frequent content updates. For more on the Snaxy app, check out the link in the description below. So the leak I'm talking about is the leak where we got actual images of the supposed Nintendo Switch 2 prototype. And this leak caught a lot of attention by many major outlets, many venues, and there is some decent corroboration. A number of insiders have definitely taken it seriously. We even had this report from Video Games Chronicle saying that it matches up with everything they've been told about the console. And perhaps most importantly, we have this manager from this actual legitimate Nintendo accessory maker that is saying the leak is true. Now, this leak is for a prototype. What we're seeing here isn't necessarily the final build of the console. But nevertheless, this apparent prototype has gotten so much attention. This feels like perhaps the most meaty leak we've gotten yet, especially because it's also coming alongside some specs that were also listed, and also just a few days prior, there was this other rumor about a Chinese manufacturing leak that was describing the console, and supposedly their work credentials were verified before being taken down. And there was even this content creator that supposedly had heard about this beforehand, who created a 3D print for this console, so we can get a better look of it and compare it to the actual Switch OLED model. And so many people have been talking about this, many people have been excited about this. But there has also been quite a bit of conversation from many that are not happy about this leak. And I don't mean the people that don't believe the leak, because there are just some people who won't believe anything until Nintendo themselves confirms it, and that's fine. But it's more so from the people who don't want to believe the leak, because they don't like what they're seeing. Many people see this and they think that Nintendo isn't really doing much here. It just looks like a bigger Switch. And that's why some people don't think it's real, because it's too simplistic of a change. And what I would like to emphasize right here is that this is a prototype. In other words, it's not a final version of the console. Supposedly, this prototype is from October of 2023. It's likely went through at least a few other iterations. It's not the final build. There could be some changes, perhaps in size, ergonomics, maybe even some physical features. But operating under the assumption that what we're seeing is essentially what the Switch 2 is going to be, I'm personally very happy about what we're seeing. The Joy-Cons are significantly larger. This perhaps could be hinting at some better tech inside the controller, but at the very least I think it's suggestive of a more comfortable controller to hold. We even see how the sides are a little bit more rounded. And again, since this is a prototype, perhaps the final build might be even more comfortable to hold. And then for the actual tablet itself, it is larger. We're talking about an 8-inch screen here, which by the way we heard about many months ago. It's been verified by several different outlets. So what we're seeing here isn't really much of a surprise, but to see it and see the size comparisons, to me it's exciting. Moving up from 720p to 1080p with likely a newer version of LCD technology at 8 inches, I'm really getting the sense that I might be enjoying handheld mode a lot more. Not just because of the screen size, but also because of the bigger controllers. It's going to be more comfortable for me to personally hold. So more comfort, more power, better display, these are all good things. Why are people upset? Because some people want to see something wild, something different. Many fans want to see Nintendo innovate because throughout history that's part of what they've been known for. Innovating, coming up with wacky new ideas, and changing how we play games. And yet, with what we're seeing of the Switch 2, everything that we're hearing about regarding the different leaks, also is suggesting that this is going to be an iterative console that's simply improving upon the Switch 1. There's even a rising belief that the console will simply be called Switch 2, which also many fans wouldn't want to see. They would want something more surprising or creative. And in terms of the name, what I've personally argued is that what makes the most sense is for Nintendo to come up with a name that clearly tells us exactly what the console is. Messaging is the most important thing when it comes to marketing, so that way people know what it is that you're selling, so they buy it. It was one of the biggest issues with Wii U. Calling it a Wii U, that letter U, there was a lot of room for interpretation there. And yeah, Nintendo was innovating with the Wii U, or at least they were trying to with the gamepad and all of its technology, and there were certainly some new forms of gameplay with the asymmetry and all. But the console completely flopped, because most people just thought it was a tablet add-on to the Wii, a console that people were tired of after already a few years. If Nintendo were to just call the Switch 2, the Switch 2, people would know it is literally the next generation of Nintendo. It's a follow-up to the Switch, which, by the way, people are not tired of, and the Switch has had a much longer generation than the Wii did. What Nintendo has going with the Switch is something that they can replicate, they can continue. They have a good thing going here. Why run the risk of screwing it up? So essentially, what I'm arguing here is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But some people might say, you shouldn't get complacent though. You don't want to get to the point where it becomes broke and so then you have to fix it. And I do think there is something to that thinking. I do think you have to continue to improve and adapt in all parts of life, not just video game business. And the fact of the matter is, I do think they are going to innovate. I do think we are still going to get the Nintendo we know and love, but it's going to be in the best places, the games. I don't need the console to do something wacky or weird just for the sake of being wacky and weird. If they come up with something that improves the experience, go for it. I'm campaigning for scroll wheel shoulder buttons. I want to see something that improves the overall interface. So if they found a way to do that, sure. And some people are going to say, well, there's no way there's going to be scroll wheel shoulder buttons. There may not be. The prototypes don't suggest that. But again, it's a prototype, not the final build. We don't know for sure. And also, while it has had some corroboration, we still don't know for sure if it even is truly a prototype. But I only bring up the idea of scroll wheel shoulder buttons as a possibility, a hypothetical improvement. There are many other ways they can improve things, and it may not all be apparent just from looking at the hardware itself. It could be with the operating system, it could be with different apps in the system that improve your overall experience. Thinking about the Switch itself, its greatest innovation is its ability to switch. It has changed the gaming lifestyle for many. It's one of the reasons why it's so popular. It offers the home console experience, but it also switches seamlessly to handheld mode, which many people will enjoy in many different ways, including tabletop mode. Which, by the way, with this prototype, it is bigger, it still has that thick kickstand and the bigger screen. That's going to make tabletop mode all the more inviting, especially with the two different Joy-Cons that have even bigger SL and SR buttons. I haven't liked using the Joy-Cons separately because the buttons are so small, those special shoulder buttons when you're just using the single Joy-Con, but according to the prototypes, those buttons are significantly larger, and perhaps pretty comfortable to use in single Joy-Con mode. So I already feel like improvements are being made here. But getting to my main point, Nintendo has something going that's really good. The Switch is extremely successful. They can just follow it up with the Switch 2, make sure the messaging is incredibly clear, people understand it, and get people excited about the games. From what we've heard of the specs, this console is going to be a sizable leap over the Switch, and games are going to look and run significantly better. But I think it even goes beyond that. Look at what we got with Breath of the Wild on the Wii U and the Nintendo Switch. A Zelda game like that had never been made before. Why? Because it wasn't possible with the technology beforehand. As technology continues to improve, more and more becomes possible. You look at what Nintendo did with Breath of the Wild, you look at what Nintendo did with Tears of the Kingdom, and these games are becoming increasingly more sophisticated. What they're doing with the puzzle mechanics and the physics is mind-boggling. And the fact that they were able to accomplish that on Switch is impressive. But it also took them an extremely long time to put out Tears of the Kingdom, which is building off of Breath of the Wild. Tears of the Kingdom is, in a way, kind of like a 10+ year game. And part of that was because of optimization, getting the engine, the physics, and all of it to work well on the Switch with limited power. Something like the Switch 2, they might be able to pull off a lot of these crazy ideas a lot more easily and won't have to spend as much time trying to find a way to make it work. And perhaps the Zelda team with even more powerful hardware might find ways to do even crazier, even more mind-boggling things than what we saw in Tears of the Kingdom. Because they have more powerful hardware, they can come up with all sorts of other crazy ideas. And just thinking on the Switch era, something that kind of occurred to me is that what Nintendo did with the games in this generation compared to prior generations was innovation through the games themselves. Look at what they accomplished with Breath of the Wild. Look at what they accomplished with Super Mario Odyssey. What they were able to do with the cappy mechanics, how they were able to explore around the world. At the time, going back to 2017, the genre of 3D platformers were kind of dead. Super Mario Odyssey brought them back. And now we're seeing a sizable amount more. Or look at something like Pikmin 4. That game's incredible, and they came up with a number of innovations for the Pikmin series. The changes they made to the camera, the introduction to Ochi, it's really evolved the gameplay, and now Pikmin 4 is by far the most successful in the series. So ultimately what I'm getting at here is that with the Switch 2, we are going to see games made by Nintendo that may be the most impressive we've ever seen from Nintendo, but not just because they look prettier, but because there's more they can accomplish because of the more powerful hardware. They're going to be able to innovate with their games. They're going to be able to focus on the games as opposed to trying to tack on some sort of wacky controls to justify the change. We recently talked about Star Fox yesterday, the potential of Star Fox on Nintendo Switch 2. I think we could be looking at the ultimate Star Fox game once they get that thing done for Switch 2. I think it's going to be incredible. But something I mentioned in yesterday's video was Star Fox Zero. Star Fox Zero came out at the end of the Wii U's life. The Wii U was not a successful console, the messaging was poor, and there wasn't really much reason to invest a lot into games at the end of the Wii U's life cycle. The budget behind Star Fox Zero was limited. There wasn't any multiplayer, it wasn't that big of a game. Visually, there were some pretty parts, but there were also other parts that were incredibly simplistic. And they tried desperately to make the Wii U controls work. And it was different, but personally I wish the game was made for just one screen, not two. They tried their best to make something wacky and weird become the new norm. And experimentation is a good thing, but in the case of Star Fox Zero, it did not work. I'm more interested in what they can do with Star Fox on the Switch 2, where they just focus on innovating within the context of the game and not trying to incorporate a wacky controller to evolve the game in that way. If the controller has some things that can naturally improve the gameplay, then go for it. I go back to the scroll wheel shoulder button concept. Again, we may not have something like that on Switch 2, but you look at what we had with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. If we had a scroll wheel shoulder button, that would make item navigation far more seamless. And that would be innovating gameplay, making it more comfortable, making it a more satisfying experience. So hopefully there are some surprise hardware changes with the Switch 2 once we see the final build when Nintendo does decide to officially reveal the console. But what has me most excited are the games and how they're going to evolve. And that's what I think is going to be a big deal. And personally, I'm not even remotely upset by this Switch 2 prototype leak. I'm excited about it. It looks pretty awesome to me. But what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.